Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. To make this little girl's dress, I've taken some material for the bodice, which I've folded twice, so I have 4 layers. And this measures 12 inches by 11 inches. I'm making the shoulder length at 4.5 inches and the armhole at 4.5 up as well. And then I just box that off and make the armhole shape. The neck width is 2.5 inches and the depth is 2 inches. I'm keeping the chest measurements at 7.5 inches, including seam allowance. And then I decided to shorten the bodice to 10 inches. And I've kept the waist at 7 inches, including seam allowance. So once you've done all the markings, you can cut everything out at this point. So you should now have a back and a front bodice. I'm taking one and going to cut a slit in the back neckline. So I'm marking 2 inches and then cutting that open. And that's your back. And for the front, I'm just going to deepen it by adding 1.5 inches and cutting that out. And that's your front. I've taken another piece of fabric, which is again folded twice, so you have 4 folds, and this will be the bottom skirt. These measurements are 14 inches by 12 inches, and for this we need the top bodice. We're going to line it up to the top of the skirt, and that's the measurement we need, and then we join that measurement to the end of the skirt. And then at this corner of the bottom, I'm just marking 1.5 inches for a curve. So drawing a curved line at the corner of the skirt. And then we can cut everything out. So this is the skirt, and you should have 2 layers. For this dress, you also need to cut 6 strips of fabric for the frill. So I've cut 2 beforehand, and now I'm cutting 4, which measure 6 inches by 30 inches. So you should have your 6 strips, 2 layers of the skirt, the front and the back bodice. And now we need to cut the pieces for the neckline and the binding. First I'm going to cut a piece for the back neckline, which is going to measure 4 inches by 2.5. Here I'm cutting the bias binding. You will need 3 strips of binding, 1 for the neckline and 2 for the armholes. So now all the cutting is done, and now it's time to start sewing. So the first step is to do the back neck. So I'm taking the back bodice and the piece, and we're going to make a seam going down the slit and then back up again, keeping both the right sides together. I'm cutting in between that seam right to the edge, and then making a few notches on each side. And to finish off the raw edges on the inside, we're just going to fold and then make a seam on all three sides. And then turn it inside out and give it a good iron. Now, taking the front bodice, we're going to put right sides together and make the shoulder seams. So about 1/2 inch seam allowance on the shoulder seams. Once the shoulder seams are done, we're going to do the binding around the neck. So using the bias strip that we cut earlier, we're going to start at the slit, and putting right sides together, we're going to sew all the way around both front and back neckline, starting at one slit and ending at the other slit. So cutting the excess binding off, I'm just going to make notches all the way around on the inside seam. And now we're going to do a top stitch on the binding, so keeping the seam towards the binding, and do a top stitch on the binding and not on the dress. Once the top stitching is done, we're going to cut off the excess and then fold the binding inwards and then fold it twice. This is how it should look. and we're going to do the same on the other side. Cutting off the excess, folding it in once and then folding it down twice. All it needs now is a good iron to flatten the binding down. So the way we've done the neckline, we're going to do the exact same on the armholes. As you can see, I've done the armholes and now I'm just trimming off the excess. And now it's time to work on the skirt. You get one layer and you need 3 strips, and I'll show you what to do with them at the sewing machine. So I'm taking 1 strip, and for these seams you need to adjust the length of the thread of the sewing machine to the highest it goes. So mine goes to a 4, and I'm making straight seams on the width of the strip, leaving a couple of inches of thread at the end. I'll make a double stitch just in case one of them comes undone while making the gatherings. So I'm taking 1 thread from each seam and then pulling the material to make the gathers. So this is what it should look like, and then at the ends I just did a knot on the thread so the gathers wouldn't loosen. And then on the opposite side we're just going to do a double fold to finish off the seam. Now taking the first layer of the skirt, this is the waist, and taking the frill and placing it on top of the waist. And as you can see, we're not putting right sides together this time. Both the right side of the skirt and the right side of the frill are facing up, and we're just going to do a straight seam. At this point, don't forget to adjust your stitch length to normal size, and then if you find that the gathers are shorter or longer than the waist, then you can just adjust them as you go along. So from that seam I'm marking 4 inches for the second frill to go, and then after that I'm marking another 4 inches for the third frill to go. And in the same way you put on the first frill, you put the second and the third frill on. So I've done 3 frills on the front of the skirt and the back of the skirt, and I've also done the hemming at the bottom of the skirt with the double fold. time to attach the bottom skirt to the bodice, and keeping right sides facing each other, we're going to get the skirt and the bodice and make a straight seam. So that's how it should look, and we're going to do the exact same on the other side with the other layer of the skirt. So the last sewing step is we turn the dress inside out so the right sides are facing each other, and we're going to do the side seams, making sure the frills are straight and tucked in. So that's all your sewing done, guys, and now for the last step is to add the button and the loop at the back of the dress, and I've used just a white ribbon for the tie, and that's it, the dress is complete. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.